Hello Pharma aspirants, welcome back to PharmaAcharya, where we explore the fascinating world of drug development. In the previous episode, we explored the phase 1 clinical trials, where the safety of the drug substance, ADME properties, and also its maximum tolerable dose range was identified. In today's episode, we are going to learn about a critical turning point in the clinical research. What happens after phase 1 clinical trials, and how a drug moves forward into the phase 2 trials, or unfortunately sometimes doesn't make it that far. When does a drug enter phase 2 after completion of the phase 1 clinical trials? So, once a drug has successfully passed through phase 1 clinical trials, meaning it has shown a safe and tolerable profile in a small group of healthy volunteers or selected patients, it becomes a candidate to enter phase 2. But this transition is not automatic. At the end of the phase 1 trials, researchers collect and analyze all the clinical data. This includes safety information like any adverse effects, lab values, vital signs, and pharmacokinetic parameters such as Cmax, Tmax, half-life, and area under curve. They also assess pharmacodynamic responses, especially if the drug showed activity on specific biomarkers or target sites. If the results are favorable, meaning the drug behaves predictably in the body and is well tolerated, the development team begins preparing for the next step. Before entering phase 2, the sponsor, usually a pharmaceutical company or research institute, must update the existing IND application, which stands for Investigational New Drug, and submit the phase 1 final report to the regulatory authority like the FDA in the United States. This report includes all findings from phase 1 along with a proposal phase 2 protocol that outlines the new study design, patient population, dose selection, and primary endpoints. Regulators carefully review this submission to ensure the drug is ready to be tested in patients with the actual disease. The transition usually takes 3 to 6 months, depending on the complexity of the data and how quickly the regulatory authority responds. Once approval is granted, phase 2 trials can begin. These trials involve 100 to 300 patients with the target condition and are designed to test not only the continued safety of the drug but more importantly, its preliminary efficacy. In other words, does the drug actually work? But what if the drug doesn't pass phase 1? Sadly, this is quite common. Around 30 to 40% of the drug candidates fail at this stage. There are several reasons for failure. The most serious is when the drug causes severe adverse reactions or unexpected toxicity in healthy volunteers. Even if it's safe, a drug may fail because it shows poor pharmacokinetics. For example, if it is not absorbed well, is cleared too quickly from the body, or accumulates in danger. Sometimes the drug simply does not show any meaningful pharmacodynamic response, meaning it doesn't affect the biological target as expected. When such failures happen, the drug development process is paused or even stopped entirely. The company will often conduct an internal review and decide whether the issues can be resolved. If they can, the drug might go back to the preclinical research for further reformulation or re-evaluation. For example, the company may try to improve the formulation, change the route of administration, or modify the drug molecule itself to overcome the problems. In some cases, a drug that fails in one area might still have potential in another. So, it could be repurposed for a different diseases where the mechanism of action could be more effective. However, any major change like this would require a new IND application and a fresh clinical trial process, starting again from phase 1. On the regulatory side, if the drug is found to be unsafe, the IND is usually placed on clinical hold or even withdrawn entirely. This prevents any further testing in humans until more evidence is provided to ensure safety. If the sponsor voluntarily halts the trial, they must inform the regulatory authorities and explain the reasons clearly. From an ethical standpoint, all trial participants are informed of the outcome, especially if the trial is stopped early due to the safety concerns. Patient safety always remains the top priority, even if it means ending a promising project. So, to summarize, the transition from phase 1 to phase 2 is a critical checkpoint in the life of a drug. A candidate must demonstrate that it is safe, predictable, and biologically active in humans before it can move forward to be tested in patients with the target disease. Regulatory approval is a mandatory before the next phase can begin, and the trial design becomes more rigorous and focused on therapeutic potential. On the other hand, if a drug fails in phase 1, the road ahead becomes uncertain. The development may be stopped, revised, or redirected, depending on the nature of the failure and the potential to fix it. This is why phase 1 is not just a safety check, it's a critical filter that helps determine which drugs deserve to move ahead in the long and challenging journey of clinical development. Take a look at the summary table provided about the transition phase of a drug molecule from the phase 1 to phase 2 clinical trials. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped you understand what happens between phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials. In the next video, we'll dive deep into phase 2 itself and explore how researchers test the drug's real-world effectiveness. Until then, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to PharmaAcharya for more insights into the drug development process. See you soon. Thank you for watching this video.